Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Jeffrey Lazarus, and you are watching Welcome to Mars Warlogs on the Gaming Vector. This is a $15 downloadable title. It is available on Xbox Live Arcade. I believe it is also available on PC and will be coming to PS4 in the near future. I'm sorry, PS3, not PS4. So, let's go ahead and look at what this game has for offerings. First off, let's jump into the options menu. We'll take a look. There are no rebindable control settings. This is what you get as far as your controls. I do not know if the PC version has fully rebindable keys or not. I would hope that it does. We can also go into game options, and as you can see, we have difficulty, tutorials, subtitles, and vibration. All pretty standard fare. Audio settings, we do have separate audio sliders, always a nice feature. And we do also have our typical brightness setting. As you can see, mine's up actually fairly high. And the other available item we have here on the menu is the guide, and this basically lets you run through all of the tutorial messages. So if you miss one, or if you want to play without the tutorials, you can go through and read all of this pretty much right off the bat, and it will give you an idea of what exactly is going to be going on in the game. So from here, let's go ahead and play, and I'm going to load up a game where I've put a little bit of time in, not a whole lot, but I'm actually set up at a spot where I can show you, first off, the leveling system and the crafting system, secondly, the conversations, and thirdly, the combat system. There's also a bit of exploration and scavenging for stuff going on, as there is with any game with a crafting system. But, as you'll be able to see, if we tab over to our map here, the maps are not terribly large, and they're not terribly expansive, but they do give you enough of an area to be able to kind of search around for stuff. As you can see, there's like a glowing pile of rubble down there. There'll be some stuff in there I can possibly use. So let's go ahead and jump back into the menu here. First off, let's take a look at the inventory system. So there are 4 separate tabs here. We have a weapons tab, armors tab, items tab, and components. So components are used for crafting items that are attached to your weapons or armor, much like I'm going to show you right here. So we have the improvised weapon and the cracked tube. As you can see, we get direct stat comparisons. It's always a nice feature. Now, if you notice the 2 icons on the right, by pressing the Y button, I can recycle the item and get some components out of it. By pressing the X button, I can actually go in and upgrade my weapon, and you can see it has a handle slot. So what I can do is use the components I've acquired thus far and build multiple different types of handles for it. And these do actually change the look of the item. As you can see, they also change the statistics of the item. So for instance, a fabric grip will give me plus 1% chance of critical hit. A reinforced fabric grip gives me plus 2%, so on and so forth. I'm actually going to take the handguard to reduce physical damage. And there you can see it's been put on the weapon now, and the nice thing is these upgrades aren't permanent. If I want to switch back to something else, I can easily do so as long as I have the components to do it. Now, what that will actually also do, though, is it will give you a chance of retrieving the components you used to make the other one. And as you can see, it's 50% chance on each of those. So they are removable, but there is a chance that you're going to lose your crafting components if you do that. Just something to keep in mind. Also, armor works in the same way. As you see, we have shoulders and forearms. I don't really have the materials to do anything with these, but you can see the differences on the character model as I scroll through these, and you can also see the stat differences, such as physical damage reduction, electrical damage reduction, so on and so forth. And it works exactly the same for the shoulder pieces. As you can see, metal, reinforced leather, and they all take different components. Also, we can use the crafting kit here to craft health injections and other things a bit later on. I've actually played a little bit past this, to kind of see what else is going on with the game. And the final thing we can do is simply look at our components so that we have a full listing here of exactly what we're carrying. So the next thing we want to look at is the character tab. Now, as you can see, we've got our feats tab and attributes tab. Attributes is just the basic stats of your character based on what you've taken. So, for instance, I know I'm going to be taking an ability that's going to be, that'll be affecting my block. So as you can see there, blocking angle 180 degrees, so I can block anything within 180 degrees in front of me. Basically, I can get attacked from behind, I can get bonus damage to counterattacks, and timing to counterattack, which is 0.15 seconds. Now, once we get into the skills, we should see some of these statistics change. Alternatively, we also have these feats. So every level you get a point for a feat. These feats all have their own set of requirements, as well as their own point values. So, for instance, Quick Learner we can get right now for 1 point, and that will give us experience from defeating enemies plus 10%. Now, we cannot actually get Combat Spirit yet, because we have Quick Learner, but we have not defeated 20 enemies, and we do not have 3 points to spend. And then so on and so forth as it tiers upwards. Also, you can look at, say, Apprentice Handiwork unlocks new craftable items. So all of these can be pretty useful. It's just a matter of which ones you want to prefer for your playstyle. Next thing we want to do is jump over into skills. As you can see, we have 3 separate skill trees. And I'm going to jump into the combat one here just to show you how this works. So I have 4 points to spend, as you can see. Now, if I put points into Tough Skin, the first point will give me the plus 5% physical damage reduction. The second point will give me the 10%, and the third point will give me the 25 maximum health. And I believe those all stack on top of each other, so now I have plus 15% physical damage reduction and plus 25 maximum health. And as you can see, this has not actually unlocked the next tier yet. Now, if you look up at the top, it says next rank amateur 3 out of 4. So once we put one more point here, which I'm going to put into Science of Parry, now we have unlocked the next tier. And all of these appear to work the same way. So there's electrical damage reduction, and the third point gives you health regeneration. You do have regenerating health in this title. But as you can also see, these have their own prerequisites. So because I did not take any points in Science of Evasion, I do not have the ability to take Offensive Roll. And all of these 3 trees seem to work the same. Now, this Technomancy tree is not actually unlocked yet. I'm assuming there will be a specific point where it will unlock later on. Alright, so that is pretty much it for the menus and the character kind of customization, so it is. Also, this is not a custom-created character. This is the main character of the game. He will always look the same. He'll always start with this outfit. But it's kind of a Witcher scenario where you have a set main character, but you can choose how he looks through his outfit and through what weapons you wield. So alternatively, we also have the Warlog, which is basically your diary, side quests, information, codex, things of that nature. Stuff that will give you more information about the world if you want to read so deep into that. And then once again, our map. Now, this map can also be brought up on the main gameplay screen by using the D-pad. It is an overlay, so you can continue to play with the map up. However, there is no mini-map. That is something that I wish the game also had, was a mini-map also. Couple little lighting bugs there, if you're actually seeing that. When I turn the camera, yeah. So it's not a perfect game by any means, but it's a $15 downloadable title, like I said, and for what it is, it doesn't look too bad. I mean, the character models are not fantastic, And the texture is also not fantastic. Also, there's kind of a little sheen on the concrete there, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but hey. So let's go ahead and head down here, and we will scavenge some loot from around the corner here in this pile. So you can see you press A to search, and that actually gave us 3 scrap metals. So we can go directly from there to opening our inventory to see if we wanted to do something with our armor or our weapon, which I still don't have enough cloth to do so, unfortunately. Also, just a point, how does metal on your armor keep you from taking electrical damage? That seems a little silly to me. Alright, so let's go talk to this guy, and hopefully we'll see a little bit of the conversation system in action. It's not incredibly in-depth. It's not the level of a Witcher or a Mass Effect, at least not as far as I can tell. Maybe it gets more in-depth later. Like I say, this is probably less than 2 hours into the game at this point, so really just kind of scratching the surface since it is an RPG. Also, before we do that, I actually see a box over here, so never mind. So I'm just going to kind of skip through the conversation, but here we get some choices. So basically we're just going to choose the first one here, and what that essentially does is, supposedly, just like it does in Mass Effect, I actually won't be able to go over there now, is it will give you reputation points. So as you can see, if you look down in the bottom left, the character's name, Roy, he's level 3. And then you can see reputation neutral. I'm assuming that if you, take the really badass conversation options, like you'll become, mean and an evil character and so on and so forth. And like that, I have already seen it affecting dialogue options with characters, affecting what they will actually say to you, which is nice that it actually, you can, within the first couple hours of the game, I can immediately see that the conversation system does work. It's not just static options that don't change how the other character reacts to you, and supposedly it can change the storyline of the game and change things later on. I don't know how much it will actually do that. So now what we have to do is we have to go talk to this guy, and he is going to give us a weapon. Oh, stop talking, please. And then this is going to send us down into the drilling well. But now we have a firearm, and now we'll get to take a look at some combat. So that was just a real short showing of the conversation system, but you can see it's not terribly in-depth, but I have already seen it have immediate effects on how things play out. So hopefully they managed to keep that up throughout the game. Now this, by holding left bumper, we have this radial menu of items that we will be able to use. So right now I have sand throw, which as you can see is bound to the right trigger. I'm actually going to bind that to the right bumper. And we have a nail gun with 20 ammo that I can bind to the right trigger. Now simply by tapping those buttons while in combat, I'll be able to use those abilities. The sand throw is not going to be terribly useful here. So now if I can just remember where to go, we should be able to see some combat. I don't want to talk to you. Do I want to talk to him? No. Should be around the corner here, I believe. Or not. Ah, there they are. Okay, so we're going to go talk to these two guys up here. Hopefully we should have another conversation, and then we will be able to show you the combat and get to kind of my only major issues with the game. Yes, we're supposed to be heading down that tunnel. So let's just skip through this. These guys are simply talking about, oh, I don't want to go down the tunnel, but we get these rewards if we do, because these guys are all actually prisoners. This is a war camp, a POW camp on Mars. So you can see these two guys have joined. Also, strange character names, Courtesy and what was his name? Sobriety. So what we can actually do now is we are in a combat area, so we can go into stealth, and there you see we pull out our weapon. And we're actually going to sneak down in here and see if we can't engage in some combat. As you can see, the sneaking is really slow, but from what I've seen, it is actually, for the most part, pretty effective. I haven't tried a whole lot of it. And what we're actually going to see down here is we've got these eggs that we're supposed to be destroying, these nests, basically. And we're going to see if we can't do this the smart way, because you can see these other guys got wiped out while trying to do the same thing. First things first, let's search this rubble here. So you can see we got some more items. And let's just... Oh, okay. So here come our first enemies. These aren't the first enemies you'll fight, obviously, because I've already killed some enemies. So now, lock on with the right stick. You can cycle through targets. It doesn't work quite like I expect it to. So by using the right trigger, you'll see we'll pull out our gun. Bam, shoot at that guy. Bam, shoot at that guy. Bam, shoot at that guy. Now by pressing X, we have our basic melee attack. This is the only melee attack that we have. Because aside from that, we have pressing Y, which looks as though it's a melee attack, but it's actually a guard break. So we can do that to an enemy to break his guard, and then take him down with our regular melee. What we also have is, on B we can block, and on Y we can, on A we can dodge roll. And I haven't found the dodge roll to be terribly effective against larger enemies. But there was one enemy earlier who was smaller that the dodge roll seemed to work fairly effectively on. So here we'll climb down. That's another one of the pieces of exploration, is you can't just simply jump down a ledge, but you can walk up to a ledge and have the ability to climb down it. And here we will find a body that we can search. We actually could have searched the bodies back there after we killed the enemy. So what I'm going to do is, we're going to head down this way, and we're going to see if we can't get a few more useful items. Now, there we are, some handmade grenades as well as leather. So let's see about upgrading our uniform. So we still can't do the metal, but I can do the reinforced leather. So let's go ahead and do that. And that's pretty much all we've got. Now, let's bring up this menu again. As you can see, those handmade grenades go directly into this menu, so everything you'll be able to use should end up here. I'm actually going to bind that to the right bumper, because sand throw is not really useful against these mole creatures. Also, you may have noticed by pressing Y, we can bring up an orders wheel. So the two guys that are following us, they're part of our party, and we can set up a very basic set of orders for them to attack the nearest enemy, to focus on defense, to attack the same target I'm attacking, or to attack the nearest ranged enemy. We'll just leave them on attacking the nearest enemy for right now, but some basic things you can do with the game. Now, my main issue with this title is the combat, because the combat is not... nothing about this game is exceptionally special. It's all fairly standard stuff you would see in an RPG. However, the combat, I feel, is probably the weakest part of the game. Oh, now we got a big guy. So, whoops. Now that we've actually gotten locked onto him, let's just chuck a grenade at him. Oh, and that did damage to our friends as well. It's alright. These guys are not really my friends. Also, that didn't do a whole lot of damage to him, but there we can pop him with our nail gun. Step in and just continue to shoot at him. So, while the melee combat, you know, swinging the weapon and doing guard breaks and stuff like that, it's pretty standard. I feel it's a little weak. But the addition of things like the nail guns and the grenades and some of the other stuff that you can get a little later, where you can get traps to set down and things like that, it gives it a little bit of a Dragon Age feel almost, where like you can kind of plan out your attacks beforehand. So that is probably going to bring us to the end of the video, but before we end the video, and I'm just going to continue playing on here so you guys have, a little something to watch. There's the explosive traps I was talking about. Before we conclude the video, what it really comes down to is Mars Warlogs any good? Now, to put this as kind of bluntly as possible, if this were a $60 full retail game with what's in it, I would say steer clear of it. It's probably not worth your time. However, being that this is a $15 downloadable title, and there's nothing terribly broken about it, like everything works, it just, it's kind of standard. Oh, that was dumb. But yeah, what it really boils down to is that if this were a $60 game, I would say steer clear of it. There's better games out there. Go play Dragon Age. Go play Mass Effect. However, I say this is a $15 game. And being that it is a $15 game, I would have to say that if you enjoy RPGs that have a decent enough combat system, it's not fantastic, but it does it can do some cool things. And if you enjoy, the conversation options and things of that nature, really what it boils down to is this is not a bad game. It's decent for what it is. And I would really, really like to see the developers of this title get a chance to do something with a bigger budget, because I feel that is part of what restricts this game so much, is that it feels like it was made on a smaller budget. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it also seems like it was a fairly ambitious project for the amount of money that they apparently spent or seem to have spent. So I'd really like to see these guys be able to do something with a bigger budget, but at the same time, I'm not going to tell you, yes, absolutely go out and buy this game. If you are a fan of these type of games, if you're a fan of sort of that Dragon Age or Mass Effect style RPG, but you want something a little different, and you've got $15 to spend, yeah, absolutely check out Mars Warlogs. It's not bad by any means. It's completely playable. I haven't run into any kinds of issues with it thus far. But if you're not a fan, if you are not a fan of RPGs, then I would probably suggest that you stay clear of it. But that is probably going to be it for this video, considering I can't find my way back out of the cave. There we are. As always, I have been your host, Jeffrey Lazarus. This has been Welcome to Mars Warlogs, and thank you for watching.